Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for coming on a very cold evening to talk about what we think is something pretty important and something that I think takes a lot of proactive kinds of thinking and actions to try and protect our community from. So before we talk too much more, I'd like to invite Mayor Townsend to come up, and so it will be on VCTV and it will be on YouTube at some point so that we can revisit this topic. And if you hear or see something that you're interested in, you can reference it in conversations with people, or put it on your Facebook page or whatever you like. Okay? So that's the idea. And I did speak with many people that weren't able to be here tonight that were happy to hear that it was televised on VCTV. Well, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It's in the opium family, similar to morphine, heroin, and other kinds of opiates. These are all fatal doses. And heroin is on the left. That would be what you would consider to be a fatal dose, okay? In the middle is fentanyl, and you can see there's probably about 100 grains in there. Most recently on the streets, what we're seeing November, December, and January is the appearance of carfentanil, and you'll be hearing more of that on the news. Carfentanil, I don't know if you can see it, but right there, that's 1 grain. That's a fatal dose. I have a 1 kilo bag here of sugar. This would kill 5 million people if it was carfentanil. And if it was fentanyl, it would be 50,000 people. Okay? It's odorless. It's almost undetectable. You can carry a huge lethal amount in a very small place. It can be dissolved and then reconstituted. It can be packed into all kinds of stuff. It's temperature stable. It's kind of ideal for smuggling. So, and it's manufactured in China in huge amounts, so very, very cheap. So when you weigh it out, with sort of who's going to win in the heroin versus fentanyl war, pretty clearly fentanyl is a better product for a drug dealer, and so that is the one that is seeming to wipe out its competition. So here's some data just to look at. This is 1990. So there were 80 overdose deaths in BC in 1990, and we have 914 last year. So we don't even know how big this problem is yet in BC, and particularly in the Lower Mainland, but we do know that the impact is going to spread. So, we have to do what we can to be aware and to be vigilant and to do what we can to protect our community. Here's a rural factor. These are the towns that are sort of the main towns and cities that are listed here, and then everything else gets kind of lumped into the middle here. Now, this is an 84% increase in 1 year.
Before a drug actually hits our street in Valemount here, for example, it might have changed hands 6 or 7 times since then, and it might have been altered 6 or 7 times since then. It's quite possible that it's been cut with more fentanyl just because it's really cheap. So by the time it gets to somebody using it, it might be at a dose that's just completely lethal, and they'll have no idea. They might think that they're buying cocaine, for example, but they're actually buying mostly fentanyl, and that's really the danger. What we're seeing once in a while is folks are dying because they're afraid to call for help because they think they're going to get in trouble. They think they're going to be judged, or whatever the case may be. They're scared to call for 911. They're scared that the police are going to show up and start arresting everybody and all that stuff. I'm here to tell you that our first duty as first responders is preservation of life. So, if somebody is dying, that's our priority. Sure, we may have some questions afterwards, but we'll deal with that later. Suffice to say, if that's happening, if you think that's happening, every second counts, and it's important to call 911 right away.
After a hit of fentanyl, when our brains get this dopamine surge, people will feel euphoria, mellowness, and drowsiness. After a short time, we begin to crave these sensations and actively seek out the drug because our brains see it as a huge neurochemical reward. People taking fentanyl will have both physical and behavioral symptoms. These are some of the physical symptoms listed here. So as you can see, there's quite a few. So medical detox, or what we call rehab, is usually best whenever possible. This is the case for a few reasons. So first of all, the person doesn't have access to fentanyl.
The user will experience a high. This can then lead to your breathing to slow down, and your body is deprived of oxygen. Once that happens, your organs can begin shutting down and cardiac arrest can occur, and after that, death occurs. So these naloxone kits are becoming available in all communities across BC. They're going to be arriving here in Valemount shortly, and they will be available to people in high-risk situations in Valemount. They can be accessed at the clinic. So if you ever are around someone that overdoses, the first thing you do is call 911. Then S is for stimulate, so try to wake that person. If that's not possible, check and clear
So
their...
this is kind of the harm reduction strategy, and it's one of the tools in dealing with drug use is to talk about how you can use safely and some of the ways that you can reduce the harm, because we have shown time and again that you cannot stop the behavior, but maybe we can at least prevent people from dying using some better strategies. Information for parents, and we presented today at 12:30 to all the students and staff in the school, and that was very successful and I think very well received by the kids. And they talked about some things that informed us a little bit, and we're quite interested in the information that was coming across. We shared this slide with them, and we said to them, this is going to freak the hell out of your parents. So talk to them about what's going on in your peer group, what do you know, get the conversation going, and you as a youth have as much responsibility to try to bridge the communication gap as your parents do. 811 is the nurse line many of you are aware of. They are very fentanyl aware now.
Public health resource nurse here in Valemount. So I'll just take a second just to talk about the naloxone take-home kits. So if you see them like this anywhere in the community, that's probably a good thing, just so that you know what they look like. They have this little red cross, and soon some of them will be changing where they'll have a white cross on them. So if you see a person that you think is overdosing, the respirations or the breathing is very, very slow. And their lips and their fingernails can be fairly kind of a blue color. They could be just laying in a position where they're not moving. On the inside of these kits also kind of helps you. Along the top part, it has that Save Me, and it kind of walks you through what to do. There's gloves, there's the Narcan, there's a little face shield that's needed. In regards to the kits, these are in Valemount. Valemount Health Center is a registered site, and so these are available, and they're available free.
How do we feel fentanyl is actually getting into this community? What channels is it actually getting in here?
Again, I wouldn't say we have a drug problem in Valemount, but it does exist, and this is part of the reason why we're here today, is just to kind of raise the awareness of the fact that fentanyl is becoming more and more of an issue in Western Canada, and unfortunately we're not immune to it here, so this is why we're here.
What can we do? So vigilance is important. Communicating and getting the word out there, talking about it with people. If you're an employer, talking about it with your employees or with your clientele. If you're a parent, talking about it with your kids and with your friends with kids and your neighbors. If you're in social groups and sports teams and sitting at the pub or whatever, have that conversation. Tell them what, some of the information that you heard. Get the awareness going. Thank you very much for coming.